A very warm welcome to Golden Glory as we continue to celebrate our senior games here in Barbados. Now, sports has always been his passion, his driving force. Today he recalls the first time he stepped onto a field, a court, a track. Each moment etched in his memory as if it were today. From those early beginnings to the thrilling heights of competition, the journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. Sport taught him discipline, resilience, and the value of good teamwork. It has molded him into the athlete he has become today. This episode of Golden Glory begins with Victor Young speaking of his introduction to athletics.
How long have you been participating in any kind of athletics?
I've been an athlete from the time I was 17 years old.
I was involved in athletics, but in those days I was educated between St. Leonard's, Wesley Hall, Richmond, and in those days you could not compete at, which is known now as inter-school sports. You had to compete with just like your school. Then after I leave those schools, I got into the modern, where the principal at the modern, he was an athletic person. And there's when then we were able to enter into school sports. And in those days, you didn't have things like running shoes. If you were fortunate, you had to run in something like, we would call them black pumps. And those was all running shoes, black pumps. Or some of the people, they run barefoot. And you had people like from Commerce, like Lily Brewster, and those people who were running those days, and people like Tull, who carried on to my bus. He was a 440 runner. I was 440 and 80. We had people like Jasper Spring in those days. He would also run the 80 and the 440. But in those days, he would run the 100 yards too, but we would run up 3 events, or 4 events. So the longest thing you had at that time was the 880. And you were talking about yards then, because there weren't any meters then in those days. Those events were held at Kensington Oval. Nearly all sports were held there. It used to be people like the late Ken Farnham, you would have cycling where the Venezuelans would come up and run against Barbadians. People like Ken Farnham, Stewart, Carmichael, and those guys who would ride in those days, and people like Joyce Marshall, who was the only female rider at the time. Although I was good, there were guys who were better than me. And I was always trying to make sure that I got in there with them. But then after I break off from that and stick strictly then to bodybuilding, weightlifting and amateur boxing and those kind of things. People like that inspired me were people like John Marshall, who worked for Radio Fusion at the time. Lionel Maloney, who was the prison officer at the time. These are the guys that inspired me on, because being I was younger, and the guys see you had any kind of potential, they will help you. You could have moved from, in those days there weren't any gym, there were clubs. You could move from one club to another club. And the guys there will help you. It means that I would have gone around to nearly all the clubs in Barbados at the time, seeing what the guys were doing there. And if a guy see you had a weakness, although you were competing against him, you can still train with him. Today it is not that. I played football, I played nearly every sport that you can think about in Barbados. Water polo, when you had people like Foster, and when you talk about the people who are doing the swimming now, when I played water polo, I played against people like Lorenzo Best, who started the lifeguards. And that used to be played at the police jetty. So those are some of the days when you're talking about people in athletics or anything active. Those are the days that we had. Because you had to definitely understand what you were doing. And nobody wait for anybody to come and tell them, come and train on the morning. The morning that you couldn't get to training, you cry. Today now people tell you the rain is falling or too hot.
In the last episode, Hamilton Lashley spoke of trepidation and how the late Prime Minister Arthur admonished him and insisted that he took responsibility for the thousands of seniors who were about to assemble at the National Stadium for these games. Well, Victor Young was well aware of that anxiety.
I was hearing from people around Barbados, those seniors are going to go up there and let us get the ambulance and things to bring these old people from running at the stadium. Caused Mr. Hamilton Lashley to come down to the stadium, but when he got down to the stadium, he realized that nobody was injured, that all the guys were competing and they didn't have to bring any ambulance for anybody. But a lot of people had this kind of pessimistic idea that these are some old people who were going to, you know, have a heart attack and that kind of thing. And it was not so. I was challenged all over the place. I'm coming for you. Everybody wanted to come and tell me they want to run 100 meters. I says, no, if you want to compete with me, you got to run everything. Because you can't come at 35 and talking, but you want to compete against a man who's 65 and 70 to run 100 meters. You've got to run everything. And they never turn up. You will only see them in the stand. I came at age 65 to 69, and I competed for roughly 19 years as a sprinter. It means that I was the winner of the 65 to 69 age group, champion of that, 66 to 70 champion of that, 70 to 74 champion of that, 75 to 79 champion of that, 80 to 84 champion of that. And all my events that I've been competing, I was defending titles. I was not winning titles, I was defending titles. It is only now that I would be trying to win the title, because at age 85, which I should be competing in that division, I was overseas to my daughter's graduation, who was graduated to a neurologist. So I was not able to compete then. But in 2024, Minister Kurt Humphrey and his permanent secretaries, they're very enthusiastic about the games. They're very excited about the games. And seeing that they're that excited, I know that the senior games will get back to the pinnacle again, because the senior games at one time was one of the biggest sports after the school sports. You used to have the cycle track packed with people coming to see the seniors.
Victor Young is the man in red, and we can watch the form. Here he is, opening up the stride now, but he's getting a challenge from the St. James man. But no, he's just easing it down as he gets to the gather line. Here he is, Victor Young, 2 times the winner here. Congratulations to him.
After 2006, the crowds started to dwindle. But I told people, anytime that you have 3,000 people in the stadium watching senior athletes, you have a lot. Because the actual competition outside of the school competition, the other clubs and Luleks do not have that much. So we should be happy about that. What the senior games did to most people in Barbados, it had them conscious of their health. And they started walking on the garrison, they started walking at the gymnasium. Some even come to me, which part I was training at Hearts and Cause before. I'm based there training senior athletes now. Then you had another club, Feeding Striders, and then another club came on named Bansack. So it still was there for the seniors, but not that large crowd that we saw between 2002 and 2003. So as I said earlier, anytime you have 3,000 people at the senior games, I consider it a lot because the other games do not have that beside the school sports until let's say extent they had the relay fair. So that is exactly what was going on with senior games.
And I was the person who everyone wanted to see, because when people hear about this Victor Young who is going to have the stadium on fire, everybody wanted to see Victor Young. And each event that I compete in, I would compete in the 50 meter, the 100 meter, the 200 meter, the 400 meter, and the 1500 meter. And I would change the bodysuit to every race that I competed in. And I'm the person actually who put these games on the map. Well, we're talking locally, yes, but I've also gone off to Utah on 8 occasions representing Barbados and selected. It means I had to meet the criteria that they wanted because they were spending money. And the 8 times I met the criteria. The best in the world would compete in Utah. And what had happened is that
I had gone on the net and saw these games in Canada and America. And Mr. Lashley, as I said, Hamilton, he said, but well, you know, just go ahead, give me a budget, and we'll go back to cabinet and see what could happen. So I actually came out with Utah. Because when you look at it, you only travel to Miami, move into Las Vegas, which we did, and then on to Utah. They wanted us to catch a plane, but I said no, let us go by bus so people can see the areas, because you're passing Phoenix on the left hand, you know, right. So the first set of games we traveled to was in 2004, just after the regional games we had here in Barbados.
Back into contention. This is going to be pretty good. I'm still back in Pop Kite to win.
Here's Pop Kite.
Here comes Pop Kite. Hereward.
Here's Pop Kite.
He is coming down the straightaway.
Oh, yes.
Like a runaway train. He is no longer Pop Kite. He is Dennis Express Hereward. Wins it.
So 8 of us left for Utah at the time. People like Audrey Cox, Milkman Headley, myself. We had a team of about 5 at that time. And people like Ainsley Lovell, she was also off to Utah, Pearlie Hereward. They made up the team for Utah. And we were competing and winning medals every year. We have also won the Challenge Trophy. And they didn't expect Barbados seniors to win the Challenge Trophy. And then they decided we were winning these games so often to combine with all the other people outside then, so to see if they could have got the Challenge Trophy from us. And we had never gone to the Huntsville World Senior Games and did not medal. Each time that we go, we medal. At one time we had over 100 and something medals we brought back to Barbados. Nobody in Utah talk about old. They don't understand what it is talking about old. We've got people in Utah who is 106 and 105 who are competing and they're running out the blocks. They're running 50 meters, 100 meters, and those kind of events. So it is just in Barbados that a lot of the people who followed sports, they don't do any really research on Utah. Because if you don't know anything about Utah, you can't talk that these are some old people going to shop. When we go to, we are not old people. We are senior athletes, and we are not a liability. We are an asset. Because you won't find senior athletes out there. Majority of the senior athletes, you would see that they're trim people. They're world-class type of people, because that's how we train. When I trained at Weymouth, all the roads used to be blocked to and fro because everyone wanted to see who is this Victor Young in this headband and bodysuits. So, I mean, you know, it was very important to see seniors. And people at that age who are sprinting, because we are not talking about running, you're talking about people sprinting. I've been sprinting for at least nearly 19 years now. A sprinter and run is two different things. We got to use explosive power as a sprinter. Runners do not use the kind of power that we use. And my training consists of something like 4 days a week on the grass at the moment. Then I've got 3 days in my weight room because I have my own gym. Because you must be physically and mentally fit. And you must also have an understanding of the anatomy. Because if you have no knowledge of the anatomy, you wouldn't even understand injuries. Because at my age now, and there's an injury, it takes longer to heal and it may not even heal. But I got the knowledge to understand how to rest an injury. Thank the Lord, from my time that I've been competing, I've never pulled up. I've never pulled up with a hamstring. I've competed 5 and 6 races in one day. Today everybody's asking now for it to be 2 days and 3 days. Because a lot of the guys who now come into the game, they can't really take on that. And then they say that the experts have seen it better now to give people at least 2 days and 3 days when it comes to the games, because it is a stress on the body. But as I said again, you have to be prepared. And I make sure that my doctors make sure that I'm okay. And I can say I have the best 2 doctors. My daughter, who is my neurologist, Dr. Donna Young, and Dr. Bradshaw, Maria Bradshaw, who is my physician. Both of them work on me and make sure that I'm okay. It means that Dr. Bradshaw will correspond to my daughter and let her know what is going on with me, and they make the decision, yes, I'm ready. And my main coach is my wife. And she makes sure she knows the time I'm ready to eat, she knows the time I should get my rest. I must have my 5 meals a day. I must have my 8 hours rest. And when I talk about 5 meals a day, I don't want people to get the wrong impression that you're eating a ton of food. Your meals are in small quantities so that they can digest. Sometimes I tend to got the tendency to cheat, and she would normally keep me off of the sweet things because I also have a sweet tooth, so she controls that. And what I would like to send out to a lot of people, I would like people to be talking more about keeping themselves fit instead of be talking about eating so much food and so much sauce and that kind of thing, because I find in Barbados we've got some people who promote sauce more than they promote healthiness. And if you are promoting the food you're going to eat and you're saying, let you have a lot of sauce, it's obvious that you will look like the food that you're eating.
What about his many awards for his exploits and the very high standard that he set in his sporting events?
I was one of the 5 senior athletes to achieve the IOC award, the International Olympic Committee Silver Plate. I was the oldest person to receive it. I received it in 2006. And you would know, when you're talking about the IOC, it's the highest award when it comes to track and field and those kinds of things. Because you're talking internationally. And if those people see you, it means that you're really carrying some kind of quality for them to award you. It was people like Audrey Cox, Ainsley Lovell, Pearl Earred, Milkman Headley, and Victor Young. 5 of us were awarded at that time at the National Stadium. If I'm not prepared, I'm not going there. And I don't go on the track to believe that I'm going to be coming second or third. I am there to dominate. So that's the mentality I carry on the track.
Victor Strongman Young, this competition not really putting any pressure on him. As we anticipated, is Victor Young ahead of Augustus Thomas. But he's, as usual, showing good form, good poise. And he's reeling off yet another victory with the greatest of ease. And I'm sure he will tell us after that he needs competition.
I would say that every year, and I can only say it the way I know it, every year was a standout year for me. I have never had a year that I had any problems with my competitors, because I prepared myself. If my competitors are going to come at 100%, I'm going to come at 110%. So I really had no fear of my competitors. As a matter of fact, I intimidate my competitors. Some of my toughest competitors were people like the late Lonnie. He was one of my good competitors. We are good friends off the track, but on the track, we are warriors.
Well, trainers and members of the medical profession often advise that you should prepare your body and mind very well for athletic competition. How does he do that? Or what would he suggest?
I would say the first thing you should do is to have a whole analysis done on your body. Have a thorough check by your physician. And if you've never started in any kind of activities, you come into by starting slowly, doing some walking, and then when you can manage your walking, you start doing some strides and those kinds of things. But you should not rush it. You should come in gradually. And once you come in gradually, and you must be consistent. The key is consistency. You are never too old to compete in anything that is physical. Once you put your mind to it and you want to do it. And things that I must say to younger athletes, you can't wait on the coach. You have to be more hungry than the coach. If the coach is hungry and you're not hungry, you're wasting your time. There's no sense doing anything wrong sport. You have to understand that you want it that bad. Like tomorrow evening, God spare my life, I will be on the grass track doing my training, doing my sprints, doing my run-throughs, and doing my drills. And you will find that I would skip over 1,000 reps, over 100 sit-ups, and over 100 push-ups. That's how my preparation goes. There are people who would have competed at athletics years ago who saw the senior games and think that it was a walkover. I could remember in 2007, 2008, 2009, one of your people here, your sports people, I believe he thought that it was an easy walkover, and he came and compete, and he got some lashes. And when I told him you got christened, he said he had a hurt back. But if he had been able to compete there and control it, he wouldn't have had a hurt back, because a lot of people thought it was an easy walkover. But when they realized, and when these guys who were former athletes, as they say, once they get lashes, they don't come back the next year. And I invite all the former athletes and all the critics who criticize the senior athletes, come have a taste. I'll invite them to come and have a taste, and they will see it's not an easy walkover.
I think he's really going to get a run for his money here from
Barney Brathwaite.
From Barney Brathwaite.
He's out. He's out. He's out for glory, having been beaten twice by Victor Reddy.
And here they go, and Brathwaite with a slight lead at the moment. But here comes Victor Young. Buffett and Young. Buffett and Young. Young and Buffett. Young and Buffett. Young beats Buffett. In that extra gear, Victor goes clear. Woo!
A life dedicated to the pursuit of athletic excellence. Well, Victor Young has thrown out a challenge to all of us. Come and get a taste. Therefore, please be present at this year's Senior Games and challenge Victor Young. Those games are scheduled for May 5th to 20th. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. This has been Golden Glory celebrating our Senior Games.